with white kids and Asian kids, Hispanic kids, black fathers, white fathers, doing the field together, on the teams together. I'm seeing Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s vision come to pass, but it took him being in prison for
Hmm.
that to occur. And it happened after he died. What are
Right.
your thoughts about that? Have you had your daily drip? Welcome to the Daily Drip Podcast, episode 3. I got my guy Rod with me. What's good, man?
Everything is good.
Everything is
Yes,
good.
sir.
Hey,
Yes, sir.
what is Daily Drip? It is devotional reading for insight and practice. We're going to squeeze the scripts for that daily drip. The drip for today is advance. But before we do that, today we are honoring the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I thought it would be fitting to have my brother on here that are doing some likewise endeavors as me. So I want him to introduce himself and share a couple of things that he's doing.
Yeah, so I'm Rod Richard. You know that, right? We're
Yes.
sharing that with everyone else. I am, I guess, the CEO of Forfeit Fatherhood. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
really a business until recently. It was just me sharing information with other fathers, trying to help them become better men, better leaders, better husbands.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah. So I thought this was fitting. Daily drip is kingdom content that builds community. Rod is a part of my softball community. So funny story. My wife is the team mom of the team, and she sends me a text message and say, "Can you set up the softball field?" Now I don't know anything about softball. I just know I'm a dad. My daughter wants to play softball. My wife sends me this video,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I'm not going to really watch this video. How hard could it be? I get there and I see that the video's 15 minutes, but I was like, it's fine. So then I go out to the field and you saw me just randomly raking.
Yeah.
Remember? Yeah.
Yeah.
But you came and you introduced yourself to me. You helped figure that out. But afterwards, you hit me on Instagram and
Hmm.
you sent me that story saying, hey, I want you to win. What inspired you to do that?
You know what? I don't even know what pushed me to do it that day because I usually help out with the fields, right? Because when I was working at the high school, that was part of one of my jobs. When I was doing strength and conditioning at the high school, I also took care of the field. So I did it like twice a week for 6 years,
Okay.
right? So I'm very familiar with how to do it. And this year is the only year where I haven't like signed myself up to be the
Okay.
field guy. And I seen you out there, and I'm like,
Was
oh
I was I
man,
struggling?
ain't nobody helping him either. He's out there on his own. Let me go save him. So I went out there and you just had good energy. You know what I
Okay.
mean? You know, when you meet somebody, you can kind of tell if they're a good person, bad person,
Yeah,
or if
yeah.
they just, they just don't have good energy. But your energy was great. And when I came across that video, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna share it with this brother because I feel like I want him to win. That day I wanted you to win. Like I
Yeah.
didn't want you to be out there struggling by yourself. So
Yeah. And I appreciate that. And that's why I wanted you on this today, because that's what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s vision was, that there will be black men that help each other win, but also that we'll be in a diverse community
mhm.
helping our daughters win together. So we're going to go to Philippians chapter 1, verse 12 through 18. The drip for today is advance. You helped me advance that day on the field. Let's see what Paul says about advancing. Right now, Paul's in prison. Let's see what his perspective is. I want you to know, brothers, that what has happened to me has really served to advance the gospel, so that it has become known throughout the whole imperial guard and to all the rest that my imprisonment is for Christ. And most of the brothers, having become confident in the Lord by my imprisonment, are much more bold to speak the word without fear. Some indeed preach Christ from envy and rivalry, but others from goodwill. The latter do it out of love, knowing that I am here for the defense of the gospel. The former proclaim Christ out of selfish ambition, not sincerely, but thinking to afflict me in my imprisonment 3 times. What then? Only in every way, whether in pretense or in truth, Christ is proclaimed, and in that I rejoice. Advance. What are some thoughts that come to mind?
So just going back to how we met, right? That energy that you had you not had that, you'd you done the typical guy thing. It was like, oh, I got it, man. I don't need help,
Yeah, yeah, okay.
kind of do the normal, like, let me struggle on my own kind of thing. I probably would have let you, right?
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But your energy was so good. And just after that, I mean, it's God put you in my timeline somehow,
Okay.
because you just can't, I didn't know your name, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
But I hop on Instagram after the game, and first thing that comes up is a video of you. And I'm like, all right,
Mm.
so there's a reason why this is
Okay.
happening. You had
Okay.
good energy. Because you acted in that energy, I found out that you were somebody that was in the gospel.
Hmm.
I wouldn't have known that any other way,
Okay.
right? So like Paul is saying, or like he's saying there, is that God is being glorified through what's happening to him,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You were struggling on the field,
Yeah.
but God was
Yeah.
being glorified through your energy and
Hmm.
brought us together,
Yeah.
right? And that advances the gospel.
Yeah. And I respect Paul's hustle because Paul is doing what God is telling him to do and he ends up in prison.
Hmm.
But he still has this perspective of, hey, as long as the gospel advances, no matter what happens to me, I'm good as long as the vision goes forward. And
Hmm.
that was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.,
Hmm.
where when he wrote that letter from Birmingham in prison, he is sharing a letter about freedom in prison. I want to read some things that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. wrote that day because I think on his birthday we need to keep his story alive. And this is in 1963 from him being in prison. He reflects and he says, just as the Apostle Paul left the little village of Tarsus and carried the gospel of Jesus Christ to practically every hamlet and city in the Greco-Roman world, I too am compelled to carry the gospel of freedom beyond my particular hometown. Like Paul, I must constantly respond to the Macedonian call for aid. When I read this and then see us in Rancho Cucamonga with white kids and Asian kids,
Hmm.
Hispanic kids, black fathers, white fathers, doing the field together, on the teams together, I'm seeing Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s vision come to pass, but it took him being in prison for
Hmm.
that to occur. And it happened after he died. What are
Right.
your thoughts about that?
I mean, Martin Luther King, like Paul, had to go through it in
Yep.
order for us to get out of it what we needed to get out of it,
Yep.
right? Like Paul was saying that the gospel is being advanced because I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
The same situation with Martin Luther King, right? Like during that time, people didn't enjoy him, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
because of the persecution and the things that he went through, people were like endeared to him,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the black community is endeared, but not all of us, right? Because
For sure.
there were some that were like, "Yo, just chill out. You getting us in trouble, man. We
Yeah.
got our thing kind of
Yeah.
cool already."
Yeah.
But because he went through, we were able to get to where we are right now,
For
right?
sure.
We
For
get to
sure.
get the opportunity to be together the way we are.
It's kind of like what you said that like it really wasn't a business. You started out forfeit fatherhood, but then you recognized there was a need and you
Hmm.
kept pursuing that vision. Kind of share a little bit about your vision of helping fathers, where that birthed from.
You know what? It birthed from becoming a father,
Okay.
right? I always say that I found fatherhood to be my purpose. Like
Okay.
prior to becoming a father, I was chasing a career, right?
Okay.
Like I was just doing whatever the career wanted me to do, and that's what I was going to be. Like when I introduced myself, I was strength and conditioning coach. That was it, right? Then I found I was going to be a father, and I realized I didn't know that much about it. You know, I have a
Mm.
father, obviously.
Okay.
I had a stepfather as well, so I technically had two fathers, but I didn't know a whole lot about fatherhood. We didn't have a
Okay.
whole lot of fatherhood conversations, and what I learned was just through seeing them,
Okay.
right? Seeing them do different things. So when I became a father, I had all these questions. So I
Mhm.
started asking guys that I thought were pretty good fathers.
Okay.
And then I realized, like, if I have these questions, just like when you're in school, like you ask the question because
Yeah.
somebody else has the same question. I was like, I'm getting all this good information, and I'm holding it to myself.
Mm.
I should start sharing it.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
that turned into the podcast, which came first. And then as I kind of hunger for more stuff, I went out and watched videos and listened to other podcasts and scanned the internet for stuff. And
Hmm.
then as I found good information, I started posting it and sharing it. And it was just initially just a group of me and my friends. It was like me and five other guys.
Okay.
And then it was crickets. Like I had like 6 followers, right? It was
Okay.
just for like a year, really, literally.
So there's hope for me.
There was like
Okay.
nobody.
Just make sure. Okay.
Right? There was not nobody, but I wasn't pursuing the followers. I was trying to provide information, right? I was trying to help
Okay.
because I knew somebody was gonna find it,
Okay.
right? If nobody found it, that would be cool because I was putting it out there for somebody to find,
Got it.
right? Like I was
Got it.
leaving a trail of breadcrumbs. Somebody's gonna find it someday.
So you kind of talked about this earlier where if I was the type of dude that's like, nah, I got it. And then
Hmm.
you would have just let me. that's me being in my own prison from asking for help. So you're saying that this birthed from a need of you being humble enough to say, I need help being a dad. Let me ask. Then as you got those resources, now you want to multiply the impact that others had in your life, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
And that's the same thing Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. did. He was growing up in a culture where he had this vision and this dream, but he was also a father navigating racism back then.
Hmm.
I want to read something and I want to get your perspective as a father that Dr. Martin Luther King said when he wrote in that prison. He said, when you suddenly find your tongue twisted and your speech stammering as you seek to explain to your 6-year-old daughter why she cannot go to the public amusement park that has just been advertised on television, and you see tears welling up in her little eyes when she is told that Funtown is closed to colored children, and see the depressing clouds of inferiority begin to form in her little mental sky and see her begin to distort her little personality by unconsciously developing a bitterness towards white people.
Oof, that stings. Right, that stings. You know that's I never had to do anything like that, and I can't imagine what that would be like, what that feeling would be like. Because one, you kind of feel powerless because it wasn't like he could just go,
For sure.
we going,
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
just
for
gonna pull
sure,
up and
for
we're gonna go.
sure.
And if somebody got a problem, then they're gonna. It wasn't one of those situations. It was one of those. I've got to swallow my pride,
Yeah,
and then on top of that, now I have to crush your dreams,
yeah,
and you got to be okay with it, and I got to be okay with it, or I can go do something about it.
yeah,
Right. And it
yeah,
might not help you right away, but maybe
yeah.
your grandchildren or your,
Hmm.
and it's that takes a lot of courage to stand up in the face of that
Yeah,
and even think those thoughts.
yeah.
Right. Because a lot of times we'll just take it for what it is.
Hmm.
Right. Especially we'll just go with the flow. Like,
Hmm.
oh, we can't go. All right,
Hmm.
cool. We'll find some other thing to do. Right. Or we'll sugarcoat it or make it seem like, we didn't really want to go there anyway.
Yeah,
And the whole time it's burning us up inside.
yeah. I
Yeah.
just can't imagine the reality of like the vision that I have in my heart, my kids are not experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
And they're hurt and broken because of it. But and that could have been a prison for him, just like
Mm-hmm.
Paul was in prison. But he utilized that prison to continue to write. And now 60 years later, we're still reading his words. So like I'm inspired by that.
Right.
I'm inspired by you saying I wanted to help dads, and it was just 6 of us. Because right
Right.
now it's 6 of us in this room right now. And this is the whole Daily Drip team right now. But that's the whole situation that in order for us to advance, I think what you're saying is be humble enough to ask for help, but also when you need help, still help advance others.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's the practice. So, we do devotional reading for insight and practice. We talked about that insight. What other things could we practice this week for the drip?
I think what you said is really important, being a bridge,
Okay.
right? Because on one hand, we need help, and on the other hand, we can help somebody that's maybe a step behind us, right?
Yeah,
So finding those opportunities to get support, but then also provide support,
for sure.
right? Not kind of secluding ourselves and making ourselves just this island of one,
Hmm.
right? We want to extend olive branches in both directions. Like, hey,
Yeah,
can you help me out? But then also I can reach back and help you out.
for sure. For
I
sure.
think that's really important, especially for guys, because we for whatever reason we like this lone wolf idea, right?
Yeah.
It sounds really cool. Like
Yeah,
lone
yeah,
wolf is like, oh, that sounds tough. But wolves don't live in solitary. They don't, right? They live in packs.
yeah.
And the lone wolf always dies alone.
Bro, I've been watching Netflix and on the like the I think it's called like Animal Planet,
Uh-huh.
and they always get that animal by itself.
Yeah, that's what you got to do. You
So
separate them.
so I learned like, no, I need help.
Hmm.
Like I'm not afraid to ask for help, but I'm also humble enough to say, hey, how can I help you as well?
Yeah.
And that's the drip for advance. Here's how we're going to advance this week. We are going to be humble enough to ask for help for where we need to advance, but we can see someone that's not in the position that we're at, and we can help them advance. Any closing thoughts?
Um, Man, this is really a dope idea. Like the drip. I love it. I love it. Because you're boiling down these concepts that could be really, really big,
Yeah.
but you're nailing them and you're getting this information out in small enough increments where they're really digestible, right? You give them action items, things to do, and this is awesome, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I'm going to have to have you back on. Well, that's the Daily Drip, and we're going to close by saying, stay
Stay dripping,
dripping,
my
my
friends.
friends.